back where I wanna be. Whistle a tune that'll carry me to Tombstone territory. If your past has run afoul of the law, it's a handy place to be. 'Cause your future's just as good as your draw in Tombstone territory. Whistle me up a memory, whistle me back where I wanna be. Whistle a tune that'll carry me to Tombstone territory.
We're just as honored as we can be to meet one of the real American heroes, one of the Minutemen who have caused such a stir here in our country, because I guess there was a perceived threat. That perceived threat has been sort of on deaf ears from people, and so a guy by the name of Chris Simcox, who happens to be, what we found interesting about you, we did a little study on you, and we found out, you know, the Tombstone Territory was one of my favorite TV shows back in 1957. You were a small thought in somebody's mind at that point, but at any rate, now you've become this the editor of, and not the Tombstone Epitaph, I don't know if they still have that or not, but the Tombstone Tumbleweed, and here you are in Cochise County in Arizona, and holding back the hordes of immigrants that are trying to get across this country. So tell us, how did you quickly get involved in in that part of it?
Well, it was just by chance. It's funny how where life takes you sometimes. After the attacks of September 11th, I took a vacation to the Arizona border. Discovered a terrible problem, that our country was being invaded by drug dealers and illegal immigrants, and the potential for terrorists to come into our country was a clear and present danger in that situation. So ended up in Cochise County. I heard the stories of the plight of ranchers and landowners in that area, and by chance just ended up in Tombstone one day and read an ad in the Tombstone Tumbleweed paper. They were looking for an assistant editor. I applied for the job. 3 months later, I bought the paper, and now I'm a publisher, an editor, and a firebrand, I guess.
So there's a new sheriff in town down there in Tombstone.
Well, in a sense, yes. I mean, the newspapers have always had a big influence in the Tombstone area with battling newspapers. The Epitaph and I believe it was the Nugget was the competing paper at that time. So now it's the Tombstone Tumbleweed.
Okay, let's kind of fast forward here, because first let me catch up on something that's kind of we call housekeeping. There's another gentleman in your group that makes things a little more confusing. His name is Jim Gilchrist.
Yes.
And you and Jim are partners, are co-workers, are co-founders. Who founded the Minutemen as it was, and who are the official founders of the Minutemen?
Well, we have to go back a little bit. That in November of 2002, in Cochise County, I started a group called Civil Homeland Defense. We were the first boots on the ground border neighborhood watch group, where we actually went out and worked with Border Patrol and set up observations on certain well-traveled routes into the country for illegal activity. We expanded the group. We trained 400 people locally to set up chapters of neighborhood watch groups that worked all along the border in Arizona. In October of last year, 04, I got a call from a gentleman named Jim Gilchrist. He says, I've been watching your group, your Civil Homeland Defense group. I want to come out and see how it works. I said, fine, come out, and I asked him for some information. We screened him and put him through a background check, as we do all of our volunteers. And we gave him a tour of the border, and we showed him how we operate. During that tour, he says, I got an idea. What do you think? Do you think we could pull off a big political protest down here? And would you help support it? You have the operational structure, you're the expert. I'll go out and recruit volunteers if you support the mission. And we met a couple of more times over the next 2 months and cooked up the Minuteman project. Jim said, let's call it the Minutemen, as citizens coming to the aid of their country.
So Jim
great.
Gilchrist named the group.
Yes.
But you'd already started one, but that kind of worked together with it.
Right, and so we hosted. Civil Homeland Defense said, Jim, I'll host it. We'll run the operation. We'll run the on-the-ground tactics. You go out, and it was kind of a situation where I had been banging this drum loudly for many years, to the point where people were just not paying attention anymore. We needed a fresh face. We needed a new messenger, a new Paul Revere on the block. And I said, Jim, are you ready to go in front of the media? So he said, well, I think so. So I coached him for a while, and we worked on that, and he's turned out to be quite a media celebrity himself and handles it quite well. So he went out and started recruiting, started working with the media, and then we had a plan that we would tag team after that.
Okay, now let's really fast forward here. There's so much ground you've covered in such a short period of time. A couple of names I'm going to drop on you: Tom Ridge and Michael Chartoff. Both Governor Ridge was the first Homeland Security Director. Mr. Chartoff's the current Homeland Security Director. Have you had contact with either one of these? Have you talked to them? Have you mentioned any of these trepidations you might have about border crossings to them?
Oh, certainly. And they know who we are. They know that we've exposed the ugly secret about Homeland Security. They didn't want that message exposed and the truth exposed. Tom Ridge, of course, inherited, as the first czar of Homeland Security, a bureaucratic nightmare in that sense. It still is. Chartoff, as well, now realizes that every security agency in this country, from the FBI to the NSA to the Department of Homeland Security to the Border Patrol, military, everyone agrees that our borders are the most glaring hole in our Homeland Security, our national security. But yet nothing gets done. Chertoff and Ridge both have made their dog and pony show flyovers and tours of the border, and they say this is outrageous, this is a terrible problem, we must do something. And here we are, almost 4 years after September 11th, and nothing.
From being partially independent press, we call ourselves a partially independent press because we do have our own position on these things. But one of the issues here that's amazing to us is that you've got so much insecure borders, as it were, and you pointed out a clear and present danger to our nation, as if somebody had just been wearing blinders for several years, and because, as you have pointed out by what you've done, this has been going on and on and on for years. How long has the porous borders been going on in our country?
Since the day we signed one of the worst treaties we've ever signed, which was NAFTA. That's when the explosion occurred, where it was out of control at a level that no one had ever seen.
Why did NAFTA cause this porousness of the borders,
because in
your opinion?
It ruined the middle class of Mexico and Central America. They lost jobs. And we our government entered into a deal with the devil, to put it bluntly. We agreed that we would send our manufacturing south of the border to create jobs. We agreed to turn our back on legal immigration and allow millions of people to come in and support a rather decadent lifestyle in this country. That we would create a third class, an underclass of people who would not be granted the same rights or the same protections of our laws.
This was done how? Not out front.
Our government is complicit in allowing this to happen.
Well, we've been down this road before, a lot of things, and we want you to help us here, Chris, because we're on your side on this. We agree with you 100%. there's a porousness of the borders, and something's got to be done and fixed. And you guys are the only ones that have done anything up to this point to change that. But the question is there's always a name attached to, whether it's a bureaucracy, whether it's an agency, whether it's a company, whether it's, I don't care what it is. It's got a name, and somebody's personally got their signature on something. So when you say NAFTA caused this, was this from the administration at the time, which happened to be Bill Clinton, or was it from other sources? Where did it all, from the State Department? We're just trying to find answers to these things, and you've kind of had to find out these things on your own. So it's only your opinion, but we're listening.
Right. I think it's the responsibility for this falls on the shoulders of every Republican and Democrat that were in office at the time NAFTA was signed.
Okay.
That it falls on the shoulders of the head of every department that is responsible for immigration, border security, visas. Our country basically just lost sight of the rule of law during the 8-year frat party that I call the Clinton years.
You had a very nice presentation here in front of the Los Angeles County Republican Women Federator today. Were very well received. They all thought you were beautiful and really appreciated what you had to say. I guess my question to you is, why are you here? Why are you out on the road taking your dog and pony shows that were out on the road to these different venues now? And the other thing is, before that, I have to step back one step. You did something in April that was never unheard of.
It's unprecedented.
Unprecedented. First of all, how many people from the Minutemen were guarding our borders down in your area? How many? How many did you were able to muster?
We ended up with 879 new volunteers representing 48 states.
And these were people who were actually manning the border and watching for things.
They all at least did one 8-hour shift manning a static observation post during the month of April.
And how many illegal immigrants did you stop or halt, or can you guess that?
Well, the idea was to show the Department of Homeland Security what we feel is an effective approach to border security. That if you man the border, observation post on the border, and create an obvious presence, that is a deterrent to anyone to cross. So it's kind of like golf. It was low score wins. We shouldn't be apprehending anyone coming into the country if we had our borders secure. So we did end up directing Border Patrol to locating 355 people who entered our country illegally, and we contacted Border Patrol. They apprehended them. The most important thing is that we averaged about 30,000 apprehensions a month along that 27-mile sector that we covered in April.
That's a big number.
Yeah, 30,000 a month.
That's a big number. How can you even guess that many? How can you count that many?
Well, and Border Patrol admits that at best they catch 1 in 4.
Right.
So 1.1 million people were caught on our border last year. 239,000 in Cochise County alone.
Right.
30,000 a month. During April, those numbers dropped to about 5,000. They've remained there since. The human smugglers have packed up and gone away. They moved somewhere else. You
mentioned some things I think that our viewers would really like to know about. It's not just Mexicans coming across the border from, it's a variety of others. And can you kind of go in to the breadth of the people that are crossing our borders unimpeded?
Yes. It's outrageous that last year, again, Border Patrol caught 1.1 million people attempting to enter our country illegally. Those represent over 100 nations. The OTMs, other than Mexicans, are a serious problem now. It seems that the entire world knows that America is weak and that our border defenses are weak, and that if you can get into Mexico, you can pay someone to smuggle you into this country. That's a recipe for disaster when you think about countries on our